Hello and welcome to one of today's Tiger Alumni Week webinars, Pivoting, Pro Basketball, NASA, and Cigars. I am Orlando Ortiz, a double alum with a manufacturing engineering technology degree in 2004 and an MBA in 2008. Additionally, I am a member of the Alumni Association Board of Directors, the current RIT Minette Professor, and your moderator this evening. Before I introduce our speaker, there are a few housekeeping points I want to go over. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be answered in the Q&A box at any point throughout the discussion. We will make every effort to address all of your comments and questions throughout the webinar or at the end. This webinar will be recorded and made available in the upcoming weeks. Our communication with how to access the recording will be sent out and posted on our website. If you have any technical issues or questions, please feel free to type those in the chat box. We will do our best to get those appropriate answers to you. We would also like to thank our premier sponsor, Sharp Notions, as well as our Tiger sponsor, Rochester Regional Health, for helping make this week's programming possible. We also would like to thank our Access Services teams for helping us make this webinar accessible to all alumni. Real-time captioning is available within the webinar, and our interpreters will be spotlighted during the presentation. I want to let you know how grateful we are to all of members of the RIT family who made a gift yesterday during our Roar Day. These gifts have a direct and immediate impact on our students. If you haven't made your gift yet, you still have time. By visiting rit.edu/roar, your gift will be counted toward the Roar Day totals. Now on to our session. We are pleased to welcome Omar de Frias, who will present Pivoting, Pro Basketball, NASA, and Cigars. Born in Puerto Rico and raised in the Dominican Republic, Omar is a former basketball player in the Dominican Republic Basketball League. He holds 2 bachelor's degrees with a concentration in marketing and business management from the Dominican Republic and RIT. He earned his MBA in finance from the University of Puerto Rico in 2004. NASA hired Frias as a GS9 analyst and identified him as a rising star. Omar quickly rose to the highest civilian pay grade position, achieving a GS15 offer to manage the Science Mission Directorate $5 billion budget. He was one of only 2 employees at NASA to hold this rank under 30 years old. Fratello Cigars was born in 2013 from his love for cigars. In roughly 3 years, Fratello retail sales exceeded $3.4 million, allowing Omar to walk away NASA to pursue his entrepreneurship endeavors. Fratello has been named the hottest new cigar brand while being featured in the Washington Post, the Washington Business Journal, and Cigar Aficionado Magazine. Fratello brands now include beer, coffee, and spices. Omar also enjoys dancing his salsa and vacationing with his daughter and son. Omar, thank you for joining us. The audience is all yours.
Orlando, I'm going to say something real quick. I've been introduced in the past, but you've done an amazing job, sir. You make me look good. You make me look really good. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate Ron, everybody else here in the call, and for taking a minute of your time to basically try and do this with us. So let's cut right through it, guys. I'm going to tell you basically a little bit about the story of the last 20 years of my life, where sometimes pivoting in different careers and different things took me in different directions, and I'm going to take you through a number of those, and then I'm going to cap it at the end with some questions from you guys. So fortunately and unfortunately, that's me. Quite a few years back, 1998, I was a college freshman, and I was a rising basketball star in the Dominican Republic. I was playing basketball since I was 10 years old. Didn't want to do anything else with my life. All I wanted to do was play basketball. And it was one of those things that because I had the ability to go into a particular spectrum of sports, I was able to really get a lot of access, a lot of knowledge into teamwork and a lot of those things. And so Unfortunately, and this is the part that sucks for me, I was riddled with injuries, ACL, ligaments, meniscus injuries, right knee, left knee, you name it, I had it. And so I was forced to basically do the one thing that I really didn't want to do, which was to basically study. But I happened to be good at it anyway. So I started. I went to college in the Dominican Republic, Pontificia Universidad Católica Madre y Maestra. Yeah, you heard that right. We probably need to help them out a little bit. That's a little bit too of a long name for anything at all. I'll help them on branding a little bit, but it is. I graduated with a marketing major. I had the pleasure of having to go to Rochester and doing a dual degree. Back at that time, it was very interesting because I was coming from a semester. Then I was progressing into a quarterly back at that time in RIT. And so I was like, we were going through different subjects within, 8 to 10 weeks, going crazy, going from a semester where I was, leisurely taking my time. All of a sudden I go to Rochester, I find out two things: that I got to do everything incredibly fast. And then I find out this horrible disease called black ice. It was my first time ever encountering such a hideous, hideous thing. Anybody that's been in Rochester, New York, and knows this to be true. I guess I should have listened to my mentor at that time, where she told me, "You need to buy those boots, Omar, really big boots, and you just really just sink in into the snow." And I was like, "What's wrong with my Air Jordans? I mean, this should be just totally fine." Everything was wrong with the Air Jordans. So fell quite a few times, but learned my lesson. Follow what the mentor says. Um, the reason this is a forced pivot for me, guys, is because this was something that I was forced to basically, once I finished RIT in 2002. 2001, obviously, September 11 happened. The job market was crashed. There was nothing to do in terms of like trying to get a job. The only thing that I could get was basically being employed as mostly sales jobs and just simple commission. And so I decided to go to University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. My dad had graduated from there. My brother graduated from there. Two of my cousins graduated from University of Puerto Rico, and they all got jobs. So I figured, okay, so if I want to get a job, let me go to the University of Puerto Rico. There's good diversity, there's good things, and there's obviously the beach. So let me move from black ice to a little bit closer to the sun. So I did that. I graduated in 2004. And at that time, I had a few offers lined up. So I guess every single time I was forced to pivot, I was able to land into a particular situation that allowed me to basically look for employment back in 2004. And so IBM, opened their doors. Procter and Gamble had the General Accountability Office in Washington D.C. Kimberly Clark, and in 2004, I was able to join the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, where I had an incredible career. I think NASA is one of those organizations in the federal government that, because of the nature of the work we do, and I still refer to it as we because I'm still very much connected with all my friends. It's a noble agency, and the things that we do in terms of research and development will continue to do an incredible thing as we progress. Our technologies and everything else. So had a chance, obviously, to meet Mr. Neil Armstrong quite a few times, working a few space shuttle missions. And one of those jobs, my last job, when Orlando was giving a little introduction on us, one of the things that he says was like, I was able to rank through the ranks, incredibly fast, and I was, because I was very driven. I got into the agency as a GS9, which is a pay grade that you get after you get a master's degree in the federal government. And one of the things that I quickly found out is that it takes time. And time was the one thing that I did not like to hear. And so I quickly moved, quite a few things in terms of like doing a little bit extra than other people weren't doing, connecting with senior level management, trying to put myself in situations where people could see me and they could see the work that I was doing. And I did that. And I achieved my goal. I wanted to be at the highest level of the federal government. At the time I was 30 years old, and I did. The problem with that was I sort of lost my way through that process. I had a 5-year plan. I just didn't have a 7 or an 8-year plan, and I forgot to do a plan in 2000. When I achieved that position, but I spent about 3 years in very much engaged with the mission at Science Mission Director, where we were managing a $5.2 billion budget for science, and I was very connected with the mission. But I did lose my way through that process. I immediately was looking for what am I going to do in the next 3-4 years, and I couldn't put a pin on it. And so I somebody had sent me a state of the Stanford address from Steve Jobs. And one of the things that he sent, and this guy sent it to me just at the right time, just at the right place, because had he had not done that, who knows where it would have happened after that. But he sent it to me at the time that I was struggling a lot with just being motivated to do great things. And so the one thing that he said in that address was the only way to do great work, not just good work, but great work, is to love what you do. And this is something that I've heard before. It's like, you don't work a day in your life if you have the ability to love what you do and all that good stuff. But this was different. It was about doing great work, and for me, that was critical. Those words were critical, and I immediately started doing some research about what did I want to do. Immediately after that, did I want to do a government contract, and did I want to get into the senior executive service program at NASA? What did I want? Did I want to explore some of those entrepreneurship ideas and entrepreneurship, goals that I've had when I was going and doing my MBA? And so this was a time that I had a chance to really hone in onto what are some of the things that I personally love. And so to sort of follow this pattern and this conversation from Steve Jobs in the Stanford address. So what are some of the things that I love? Love basketball. Unfortunately, that ship sailed by that time, unless I would go and do some coaching, which I was not going to. I love wine, and I love cigars. Access to capital and access to market when it comes to the alcohol industry, it's incredibly steep. But I love cigars. Been smoking cigars since I was 17 years old. Grew up very close to a retail store in the Dominican Republic, where I was fascinated by the smell. I was fascinated by the people. I was fascinated by people smoking cigars, the aromas. And so I was bouncing my ball, like, sort of always look and see what was the connection. And one day, the owner of this place had a tabaquero, just a cigar roller, basically performing his art. And this man was turning dry leaves of tobacco into a beautiful, beautiful cigar. He gave me a cigar at that day, and I kept it like it was the most precious thing I've ever received. I had a chance to smoke it. I probably coughed along in the process because I had no idea what the heck I was doing. Never smoked anything else. Just basically, cigars is the only thing I've ever smoked. And so I quickly found out that as much as I had almost coughed along, I wanted to know more. And so, been smoking cigars all the way through college, all the way through my NASA career. And it was something that I was very, very passionate about. So I started doing a lot of research. I started getting into, going to the Dominican Republic, going to Nicaragua, Honduras, Cuba. And in these places, I was fascinated by the differences between the soil, what the effect of the soil does to the tobacco, what the effect of it's an organic product. So it's like wine. It's affected by the air. It's affected by the rain, by how dry the air can be, and obviously the nutrients of the soil and the seeds. And so it fascinated me, the scientific aspect of cigars. And so fast forward to 2013, I was able to launch my cigar brand, Fratello Cigars. This was a project that I was obviously very much invested. I did my business plan. I did everything by the book. At the end of the business plan was probably about 3 volumes heavy, and only 5% of everything that I had worked on basically came to fruition. But I did enough to basically learn what I needed to learn, and do something where it was where it would have an impact into what I was going to do immediately following the launch of Fratello Cigars. Ever since we've launched Fratello, guys, we've been featured in quite a few magazines. We've been featured in international magazines as well. I started Fratello basically at the exact same time I was also working at NASA. And one of the things that I was struggling the most was how do I get a chance to balance both? Doing the work I was doing at NASA and also doing entrepreneurship. So for 3.5 years, I basically, worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, full time at NASA. On Thursdays, I was able to negotiate with my boss that I could work remotely so that I could basically travel for my business on a Wednesday night or very early on a Thursday morning, land to my destination, telework for NASA till about 4 or 5 o'clock, and then sell cigars. I was on an AWS schedule, which is basically an alternative work schedule where you're able to work 12-hour days through Thursday. And so you get every Friday basically to, for your own time. And so for 3.5 years, I never stopped working. I worked 90 plus hours every single week, sacrificed quite a bit. And in the process, I grew a brand that was unknown, with somebody who nobody knew who the heck I was, to a multi-million dollar brand at the level of retail. We now currently are sitting in over, at this time, 3.5 years in, we were sitting in probably about 3.5, 400 some retailers nationwide. And in 2016, after 3.5 years of doing both at the exact same time, I decided to quit NASA and go full time with my cigar business. So, incredible how the forced being forced to pivot had an effect on me getting a job at NASA, and then obviously pivoting for something that I felt very passionate about and that I love. Took me to basically start Fratello and the Fratello brands of business. So I quit in 2016. I was thinking this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where I'm going to get a chance to sell cigars. At that time, I was selling well over $750,000 worth of cigars, and it wasn't even the end of the year. I mean, it was just growth, growth, growth. So I said to myself, I mean, if I'm going to have like 4 more days, I guarantee you, I am basically going to be able to at least triple or quadruple my business. Not quite the case. I was able to, when I quit in 2016 in October, the following months were great, but I was already on a roll with the amount of things that I was doing. Shortly followed, I basically went into a situation where January, February 2017 basically stayed the exact same for me as it was in the year prior. And here I am sitting on a $200,000 a year job, quitting it so that I can sell basically the exact same thing that I was selling while I was still employed. So that hit me like a brick of rocks. But what I tried to do at that immediately after that was basically go in and double down on my sales. And we were quite lucky, I guess, because the Washington Post heard our story, that this guy that used to work at NASA quit to basically sell cigars. They found it to be interesting, and they contacted me. And the first question that I was asked was, "Hey, were you fired from NASA?" And I was like, "Whoa, what? And who the heck is you? Who are you?" So he identified himself as a reporter for the Washington Post. He cut a story literally a few days before one of the largest tobacco trade shows in the U.S. And I had the cigar trade show opened the doors like a day or 2 days after this article came out, and I had a line walking out the door. So we grew exponentially, and it was a lot to do, obviously, with the fact that at this point right now we're sitting in about 800 retailer brick and mortars, with a huge presence online and a big presence with over 15 countries carrying Fratello right now. And so a lot of that obviously it came with an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of work. But I don't guess nothing else comes if you don't do the things the right way. So at this point, late last year, I was looking for what is that continuous growth for Fratello, for the brands, for our long-term goal. And I told you guys I was very passionate about the alcohol industry, beer, wine. So I decided to come out with my own brand of beer, which is now being sold in 17 total wines in Northern Virginia, along with quite a few brand new distribution deal in Louisiana, and obviously growing. So hopefully Rochester, New York, get a chance to see some of these things as well. And then I'm gonna play you guys this video right here, where it's basically, and I hope you guys hear it. If not, I'll just tell you about it. The lifestyle pivot for me was, what do I see myself as doing and enjoying for the rest of my life? And so I didn't want to limit my enjoyment in my work or the creative process of creating a brand. So that's why I decided to go in with what I really, really enjoy in terms of my long term and my lifestyle. So at this point right now, we with all of our brands, or coffee or beer or cigars, for us now is about to basically creating some of the brands, getting that recognition, getting the content, and getting people to know not only about Fratello, not only about but the cigar community, which is so special. It's one that is that has an enormous amount of following, but it also brings in a great I think it needs to be brought into to a greater spectrum of people. So
Omar, we're not hearing the audio, just so you know.
this is the reason for this strategic move is because I think we need to move it on. We need to. I'm looking to bring cigars more mainstream and tell people a little bit more about what it is like to do a pairing between cigars and alcohol and their food, and the amazing experiences you get while trying to do some of these things. And so I'll do a quick recap here, guys. I guess everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Mike Tyson used to say, and that's 100% the truth. You do, I told you guys about this quote from Steve Jobs. It is about the great work. It's not just about starting your business, but it's about doing something great with it. Then the lifestyle pivot for us, this is Thomas Jefferson used to say, it's neither wealth nor splendor, but tranquility and occupation, which gives you happiness. And so I want to search that happiness with the work and the things that surround me. And obviously our strategic pivot to basically bring something more mainstream is, however beautiful the strategy is, you should occasionally look at the results and see how it goes. So Winston Churchill, big time smoker, basically said this word. So pivoting is not the end of the disruption process, but the beginning of the next leg of your journey. I hope you guys got something out of this conversation with me. Please stay connected. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Follow us on YouTube on Imperfect Pairings, and I hope to see some questions from you guys as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Omar. I just have one quick question for you as it relates to the U.S. economy today, and kind of the amount of taxes and tariffs being placed on your products. How do you see that as an opportunity or a threat to your business?
So you cut out slightly, Orlando. Can you repeat, please?
The fact that the U.S. is taxing so much on the tobacco products, do you see that as an opportunity or a threat? Given
it's never an opportunity, man. It's always whenever we get taxed, obviously the biggest thing we do is try to obviously pivot to what do we get a chance to give the consumers sort of a break on that tax, tax or additional tax that we're getting. Our taxes, we pay 40 cents taxes alone per one cigar that's brought into the US. So obviously taxes are massive when it comes to this industry, but I don't see it as much as a threat as I see regulation. We've been under attack a lot of times with regulation, and that really, to me, over taxes, I gladly pay more taxes if some of the regulation gets loosened up a little bit.
Okay. I know we're out of time. We always like to have more, but we just want to thank you for sharing your expertise. With our alumni and friends today. Thank you for joining us at home. As I mentioned earlier, we'll send out some information on how to access this recording in the near future. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email us or reach out to us, and we'll get you those answers back to you. If you haven't already done so, please connect with the RIT Alumni Association social media channels. We encourage you to do so and make sure that you stay connected. Those links can be found in the chat box. And again, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your Tiger Week here at RIT. Have a good evening.